have you recovered from, in my mind, the biggest playoff disaster in the history of the Dallas Cowboys? That includes Wade Phillips' first year when they had home field advantage throughout the playoffs and they lost in the divisional round against the New York Giants.
Yeah, it's the biggest playoff disaster, no doubt, and certainly the Jerry Jones tenure, and even before that. It's not just that they lost; it's how they lost. Yes. It was a no-show performance. It was, just pulling the rug out from under you. The old, Peanuts character when Lucy, did
the football
again. They had Cowboy fans hooked again, and again, it's to lose one thing that would have been hugely disappointing, but to go out there and just get the doors blown off you, not show up, get out coached, out schemed, out played, out efforted. There's no bigger playoff disaster than what we saw Sunday at AT&T Stadium. The whiteout became a blackout.
Oh, that's magic. Cowboys lose to the Packers in the wild card round 48-32. Green Bay came into the game as a 7.5-point underdog. I thought that line was way too heavy.
Yeah, I did too.
You and I both picked the Packers to cover. Neither of us thought the Cowboys would lose outright. It never even crossed my mind because unlike Philadelphia, which lost last night in the wild card game at Tampa Bay, they got blown out. Philadelphia had been collapsing progressively over the last month and a half. The Cowboys had been really good pretty much all season. They hadn't lost at home all season long.
Since the 49ers game, you have the Bills game there, but since the 49ers game, they've been one of the better teams in the NFL.
So those were blitz, and they hadn't lost back-to-back games.
No.
But I just didn't see any sign of this coming. Of all the playoff games that were played this weekend, the home team won every one of them, and pretty much all of them were blowouts. The only one that was kind of close was Buffalo and Pittsburgh, and that game really wasn't that close. That was a fake close game. But Dallas and Green Bay was not a close game. Green Bay raced out ahead. The offense was terrible. The defense was god-awful. Everything about it. But you mentioned a word there that I wasn't expecting, Clarence. To me, that's an effort issue. There was something about that team that changed after Green Bay took the opening kickoff and just walked down the field for a touchdown.
Well,
something changed.
No, and let's just get into it because Jerry Jones has to do something. I mean, and what is he going to do? And when you look at Mike McCarthy, and certainly that's a big question coming into this thing. The Cowboys are the only home team to lose a playoff game this time. Okay, the only home team to lose a wild card game. It happened 2 years ago. The only home team to lose a wild card game in 2021. I didn't even know that.
Both
games, both times, the Cowboys weren't prepared to start. The Cowboys weren't ready to go at the start. I remember in 2021 when Mike McCarthy came out after the game and told us the team was not ready, and he sensed it in the locker room. And I'm just like looking at him incredulously. How did you let them walk out there? I would have shaken the rafters. I would have shaken the locker room. I'd have said, wake the hell up. Okay, it's the playoffs. I'm not letting you walk out there with you in this type of mindset. And that was the same time that we saw the 49ers coming out there with the beatbox and, all cool and laid back and ready to go. And he said he sensed that his team was not ready. And that was 2 years ago. And now you have a home game again, and your team goes out there and it's flat from the start. CeeDee Lamb's body language. It was they were.
He was defeated. He was defeated.
That is from the head coach.
I tell you, and I hadn't even thought about that game against San Francisco because that one didn't. Remember, after the game, they were like that team, and I'll say this: at least they learned from their mistakes. That team blamed the officials.
Right. But they came back and they showed some fire.
They did. They came back and they made
how
it
they
again.
started. There's no excuse to not be ready to start.
At least in that game, it was competitive.
Right.
San Francisco was a good team. You could say, well, okay, we lost to a pretty good team. We should have won. We were at home. But at least that was a competitive NFL game. We barely lost. And okay, Clarence, this wasn't competitive. This was preseason. Like the fourth quarter of that game, it looked like the fourth quarter of a preseason game. Fans were leaving. Fans were checked out, looking on their phones, worrying about the weather. Green Bay sitting there screwing around because they know the game's in hand. And then We'll get into this here in a second. But you mentioned it. What are they going to do with Mike McCarthy?